seen a lot of information online on how journaling has changed the lives of many people. I've seen videos like, oh, journaling for 30 days and this happened, or I journaled every day for 30 days and this is the impact it had in my life. Things like that. I've seen a lot of those kind of videos. And as someone that has kept a journal for over 5 years, I have not really seen as many videos of people saying how they journal, like what exactly does journaling entail. And that is why I am doing you guys the honors of sharing my journaling system, the system that has worked for me, how I journal, and my entire process. So stay tuned if you want to know what that entails. So the first thing we should know is that my journaling process basically entails three things. First is planning. Second is self-therapy, because therapy is expensive. And the last system is, or the last process in my system is gratitude. So that's planning, self-therapy, and gratitude. And I'll walk you guys through what everything entails. Over the past 5 years, I've been vicariously planning my life, like very seriously planning my life. I'll write down everything with a pen and paper because I prefer to use pen and paper to write down my plans. From my academic plans when I was in school, I still plan academically even now that I'm done with school. For my academic plans, financial plans, investment plans, career plans, savings plans, everything, I write down everything in my journal. And basically what this has done for me is that it allows me the luxury of going back years later to see, okay, 2019 Chidera wanted this and she was able to get this done, get that done, all thanks to God. And I must also say that there are so many things that I've put in my plans that I didn't even think were even possible. It was one of those things where you just put it in your plan, but you're like, I will be so delusional for this to come to pass. And a lot of them have actually come true. And some of them were not even, it was totally surprising to me. But a lot of those things have come true. To me, that just shows that God is a faithful God. And some other things I put in my plans have not come true. And looking back at them years later, I'm like, actually, now that I know better, I've seen my future, and I just know that those things were not what God wanted for me. And if I had gotten them, I most likely would not even be happy. So it's still a win. So when I write down my plans, I don't just write down plans. I write, let's say, for example, if I plan to save $20,000, I just don't write save $20,000. I write down the save $20,000. Then under that, I now go in and I write down the steps. That's the many things that I have to do to achieve those things. Like whether it means saving $100 every day, whatever it is that's going to help me get there faster or make that dream come to pass. I also write that down in my journal. Writing down my plans, I have two things that I consider: my obligations and my priorities. Obligations are things that I have to do to achieve those goals, and this can include like little things to like big things. Little things like, okay, do the laundry, cook, go groceries. I write those things in my journal as well. And I also write down the big things like, okay, taking YouTube seriously or posting every week on YouTube. Those kind of things, I also put that in my journal. And when I put that in my journal, it makes me now look at my journal and be like, okay, these are priorities, this can wait for later. So maybe I have a long list of to-dos for that day. I can say, okay, I'm not going to do the laundry today, I'll do it next week. Or I'm not going to cook now, I'll cook tomorrow. It just makes me know what is top of the priority. If filming a video is more of a priority than going groceries, I go with filming the video and then go groceries later. So because I am someone that likes to write something down, I feel like I don't like to stress my brain too much. I like to see all the things I need to do. It's basically like having a second brain. You can check out that concept. That's the concept of having a second brain. I prefer to see all my goals like written down rather than having everything stored in my brain, because my brain is already functioning enough, and I just prefer to have another way of reminding myself of things that I have to do. And journaling has been so helpful in that aspect. Moving on to the next category, which is self therapy. For self therapy, sometimes I like to write down like my dilemmas. So whenever I have a dilemma, I write it down. And writing it down again helps me to clear my head, and that's necessary. Sometimes when it's in your head, it's not as clear as when it is when you write it down. Writing it down just makes you see everything on plain paper, and then the decisions that were hard to make now become clearer for you. like you can see it, you can read it, analyze the situation, and advise yourself like the way you advise a friend. That's basically what I do. So sometimes if I have a dilemma, because sometimes I'm also someone that I am better. Maybe I mean most people are like this. We give other people advice that we sometimes even forget to give ourselves. When I write it down, I'll advise myself the same way I'll advise a friend, and that helps me clear my head more. Another thing I like to do in order to clear my head is I just literally just vent. I vent, I write down when I'm happy, when I'm sad, I just vent. And rather than complaining all the time, I write it down how I feel about different situations. So that's another thing I do in my journal. Still on the topic of self-therapy. And that thing I like to do for self-therapy is that I write down how awesome I am in my journal. Like I already know I'm awesome, so I just write it down just to, feel myself or make myself feel better. And also this is actually backed by the Bible. So I would write down I am this because of whatever the Bible says about that situation. So an example will be beautiful because in Genesis chapter 1 verse 27, New King James Version says, so God created man in his own image, in the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. And obviously because God is already amazing, if he created me in his own image, I'm beautiful, I am amazing. You get what I mean? And that just still on the I am beautiful, I can also go with another Bible verse like Psalm 139 verse 14 that says, I praise you for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. Not that I have ever doubted my beauty, but I just wanted to give you guys an example of the kind of things that I write down in my journal. Sometimes it's not necessarily beauty. It might just be I'm not afraid because God has not given me a spirit of fear, because of I'm not afraid because God has not given me a spirit of fear, but a spirit of sound mind. So what exactly is fear? Or I walk through the shadows of darkness and I shall fear no evil, according to Psalm 23. So those kind of things are the things that I also write down in my journal to help me feel better. And that for the most part helps me with like my self therapy. I'm not we're not at the stage where we can afford a therapist yet, and to be honest, it hasn't really been necessary. Finally, the last category that we have is gratitude. I feel like gratitude already explains itself. I feel like everyone knows what gratitude is, but I'm going to still explain. For me, gratitude is legit like record keeping. It's basically just recording all the things that God has answered your prayers for, all the things that were once prayers that are now answered prayers. So it's basically me, rather than sulking on the things that I want, I reflect on my life. I remind myself of how the situation I am in was once a prayer that is now answered. So an example would be graduating from school, having a job was a prayer, and now I'm living that life. So I write that down. I write down little things like being grateful for money, being grateful for shelter, being grateful for food. I write that down in my journal as well. And that just helps me always acknowledge the privilege that I have and helps me always live in gratitude. Sometimes I also write down like weird things that might have happened to me on a said day, and I just write down how like God helps me come out from that. So like basically there are days where like maybe if you are driving and one person almost crashed into you and you know that would have probably happened, like things like that. No, let's not use that example. Just random events of the day that normally you just be like, okay, God really saved me from that incident, and you just move on. Rather than just moving on, I write that down in my journal because all those kind of minute things are the things that we need to remind ourselves of, rather than just like living life like every day just going and every day just moving on and forgetting how our life could have easily changed by something drastic, if you get what I mean. So yeah, that's all. That's basically what my journal is about. That's basically how process of journaling. The question you might have is it necessary to write it to journal every day? Personally, I don't journal every day. If anything, I think it's not sustainable. Some weeks I journal every day, but for the most part, I don't. There are months where I've only journaled like twice or once. I just write down a very long journal entry. Like it can go as long as 5 pages where I just say everything that happened to me that month, because at that time it's probably still fresh. I write down everything that happened to me that month, and then next month to try again. I feel like if you're going to keep a journal for that long, journaling every single day, most people that do it, I feel like you do it for the views because those videos do well on YouTube. I don't really think that that's how they live. After they film those videos, I don't think that's how they actually live. And another question you might have is, okay, what type of journal do I use? I do not recommend any like structured journal where they give like a small box for gratitude, they give a small box for this, they give a small box for that. And my reason is because I like to express myself with my journals. I feel like all those small boxes limits you and your ability to express yourself, which I do not like, and I don't use them. If you decide to use them, that's fine. Personally, I don't, because I like writing like my heart out. Like some days I write 3 pages, 3 pages of just gratitude, 3 pages of just planning, 3 pages of just therapy, 3 pages of just random things. So if I'm being restricted, I wouldn't enjoy that journal. So I don't really think having a specified kind of journal, those journals that people sell online, I don't think it's necessary. That's just my personal opinion. If that's what you've been using and it's been working for you, kudos to you. Continue doing you. I'm just saying that for me personally, I don't do it and I don't necessarily see the need for it. Also, I also find that journaling, I most of the time I journal on Sundays because Sundays are my rest days, like my chill days, and Sundays are literally my best days for journaling. So even if I'm not able to journal throughout the week, I just do my journaling on Sundays as my relaxation and reflecting time. But that concludes this video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you want. And yeah, my name is Chidera and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.